Hello you beautiful misfits, my name is Matt and it's time once again for the Pixelburn E3 Blitzkrieg, where I attempt to snarkily summarise the main conferences so you don't have to lose an hour plus of your life actually watching them. Or at least I try to. Last year's didn't quite go according to plan and took somewhat longer than I'd initially expected or hoped for, so to avoid repeating that mistake I'll be focusing primarily on what I call the big three: Sony's conference, Microsoft's conference and Nintendo's 30 odd minute pre-recorded thingamabob. If I have time and if there's demand, I'll also try and cover the others such as Bethesda's E3 showcase, Devolver Digital's jokey non-conference and EA's usual corporate song and dance affair in some fashion. But for the moment we're going to kick things off with a shifty at the Microsoft conference because A, it's in the title of this video, and B, it was absolutely packed to the gills with stuff. So let's get this show on the road, shall we? Microsoft's little affair began with this montage of deer, deserts and other things beginning with D, as well as long lingering shots of crashed spaceships and other sci-fi gubbins to get you all hyped up for another Halo title. Halo Infinite to be exact. Don't get too excited, this was really little more than a tech demo for 343's new Slip Space engine, disguised as a teaser trailer for a Halo game. Also, as with last year, it was pretty much the only Halo related thing to even put in an appearance, making it 2 years in a row I haven't been able to rip into Microsoft for leaning too heavily on Halo stuff. Well played, Microsoft. Well played. Xbox head honcho Phil Spencer then stepped forth onto the stage to a rapturous paycheck-inspired applause from all the Microsoft employees packing the front few rows. After the fervour had died down a bit, Phil did his usual plug for Mixer. Seriously, who actually watches these things on Mixer? Before revealing that he had spent much of the past year on an epic global quest to find more games for the Xbox One.
For months, our teams and I have traveled the world, meeting developers from Japan to Poland, from the UK to the Ukraine, from big studios to single developers.
When it comes to problems in need of a world-spanning adventure to solve, then the Xbox One's lack of compelling exclusives is certainly up there. It's not quite at the level of silver-haired pretty boys with mother issues threatening to destroy the planet, true, but it's not exactly the kind of thing handed out by yokels with a rat problem either. Prithee, speak, Sir Philip the Wanderer. Was thy quest fruitful? Hast thou prevailed where lesser knaves would quake in their boots and flee like whipped dogs bereft of gilded treasures? Didst thou procure a bounty of damn good shit to show us?
50 games. 18 titles with exclusivity. And 15 world premieres.
Bugger me. Better buckle up for this bit. Apologies in advance if it seems like I'm speeding through all this, but there was a hell of a lot of stuff to cover. Not all of it was quite so exclusive or new as Phil might have claimed, but there were very few things that didn't make me go, oh, or or that looks interesting. First up, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, looking somehow even more beautiful than Ori and the Blind Forest, which I still need to get round to playing. I know, I should. I own it, I have it installed, I just haven't had the time to play it yet. I'm a very busy boy. Up next was the answer to the question, what was that From Software game they teased at last year's Game Awards? Well, one thing's for certain, you can be damn sure it isn't Bloodborne 2, although that would have been quite a coup for Microsoft if it was. It's not a new Tenchu either, although you could be forgiven for thinking it was given the ninja-esque action on display here. Although let's not be under any illusions that this isn't firmly rooted in the Souls series. I'd recognise this opening a giant set of double doors animation anywhere. And as before we get to this bit, confirming the game has some form of live, die, live again mechanic, a la Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne. It's almost like From Software took one look at Neo from Team Ninja and thought, oh, isn't that cute? Although it's far more likely both teams had a similar idea in isolation for something Soulsborne-like set in their native Japan. Still, I ain't complaining. More Soulsborne-like antics by From Software, in a supernatural feudal Japan setting, with funky grappling mechanics and more acrobatics in general. It'd take something pretty fucking hefty to dampen my enthusiasm for that. Oh. Oh dear. Oh dear god, why? Ugh. Imagine a FromSoft game with loot boxes and microtransactions. Wouldn't that just be the most fundamentally loathsome fucking thing imaginable? Good thing I don't expect FromSoft to go in for that sort of nonsense, eh? Please FromSoft, please don't go in for that sort of nonsense. Speaking of nonsense, up next was Todd fucking Howard of Bethesda to show us another trailer for Fallout 76. It was a teeny bit different from the one they released weeks ago, but it still had that West Virginia song in and told us bugger all anything new. The kind of nitty-gritty details that fans had been craving, and which Jason Schreier of Kotaku practically outlined in their entirety in this article, wouldn't officially be confirmed until the Bethesda conference later. Todd's appearance was immediately followed by a trailer for The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit from Life is Strange creators Don't Nod. Set in the same universe, this one centres around a highly imaginative young boy living alone with his slightly alcoholic though still loving father. It'll be available for free on June 26th, and I might actually get round to playing this one, because like the trailer says, we've all been children. Whereas I've never been a teenage girl doing a photography course at a prestigious school for snotty rich brats. I'm not saying I'm mentally incapable of playing Life is Strange, I just haven't had much incentive to do it. In other news, Crackdown 3 is still a thing and still has Terry Crews in it. It has however been delayed and will now not be out until February 2019. A month that popped up with some rather financially depressing regularity this E3, as though nearly every other publisher in the world is avoiding the last few months of 2018 for some bizarre and completely inexplicable reason. Having never played any of the Crackdown games, I can't say I'm fraught with desire over this one, but I can still appreciate a cannon that launches a hail of burning ducks upon your enemies. After that was Nier Automata, specifically Nier Automata Become as Gods Edition, which is Nier Automata with all the previously released DLC included. Okay, screw being clever or giving you knowing winks, I'm just going to give it to you Xbox One owners straight. Buy Nier Automata. If you can't afford to buy Nier Automata, lure someone to a motel room, steal their kidneys and use the money from selling those to buy Nier Automata. Okay, maybe don't quite go that far, I'm just saying that Nier Automata is, beyond the shadow of a doubt, one of the best games of last year, if not one of the best games of the last 10 years, so buy it, play it, love it, and welcome to the party. Better late than never. After that dollop of joy came a trailer for Metro Exodus, the third instalment of the Metro series, featuring an angry Russian man preaching about the evils of trains. Something anyone in the UK who commutes to work by rail can personally relate to, although it is a very lovely looking train. Travelling through a beautifully desolate landscape that we'll hopefully get to explore in a way that really scratches my lingering stalker itch. After that came the rather unexpected reminder that Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming to the Xbox One, a fact I'd honestly completely forgotten about, which is perhaps something Phil and co at Microsoft were counting on. In fact, this segment dragged on for so long in such an arse-achingly tedious and self-indulgent way that I did eventually remember an Xbox One version had been announced way back in 2013. Fortunately, the pace sped back up again with the announcement of more content expansions for Sea of Thieves called Cursed Sails and The Forsaken Shores, due for release in July and September respectively, which is a pretty decent pace for expansion releases. Perhaps by this time next year, Sea of Thieves might even actually resemble a finished game. I mean, it worked for No Man's Sky, kind of. We then got that Battlefield 5 single-player trailer EA had mentioned in their conference. Despite watching this at a reasonable time and taking copious notes of the whole thing, however, I just can't recall anything particularly memorable about this trailer except lots and lots of snow. After that came Forza Horizon 4, which surprised me somewhat by being set in the UK and not Japan, as according to some rumours I'd heard here and there. As well as being able to drive a bunch of new vehicles like your classic Hackney carriage here, you'll also be able to drive in different seasons with different weather. So wherever in the world you're from, you'll have the opportunity to vicariously experience a British summer in all its 2 full days of sweltering, humid, skin-drenching awfulness. Or, alternatively, one of our long, cold, dark, suicide-inducing winters. I do, however, have a nit to pick with the depiction of British country roads in this trailer as wide, tarmac ribbons of pure driving heaven on earth. In reality, they're so damn narrow you're lucky to be able to ride a bicycle down one without losing all the flesh on your arms to hungry granite walls, or tree branches with no concept of personal space. Yet that somehow doesn't prevent tractors driving down them with seemingly miles of room on either side. That is until another non-tractor vehicle appears, whereupon that space instantly shrinks to the size of a mosquito's cock. Because every tractor in the UK was seemingly assembled on fucking Gallifrey, incorporating Time Lord's spatial manipulation technology. But I digress. There was then a brief lull in the barrage of games as Phil Spencer returned to the stage, still wearing the same t-shirt he had at the start. As sad as this might sound, Phil Spencer's lightning fast t-shirt changes were actually one thing I genuinely, unironically enjoyed about previous Microsoft E3 conferences. And now it's been ruined. Fuck you, t-shirt man from E3 2016. Fortunately, this segment was relatively brief and mercifully devoid of hard numbers and other boring stuff. Phil started by announcing Microsoft had set up a new studio in Santa Monica called The Initiative. While that may sound like a secret organisation waging a shadow war against rogue AIs, wizard cults, space warlords and other comic book villains, as far as I'm aware they're just developing first-party titles for the Xbox One. Phil then casually named 4 studios Microsoft have outright bought with cold hard Microsoft cash. Those being Undead Labs, creators of State of Decay 2, Forza Horizon developers Playground Games, We Happy Few developers Compulsion Games, and blimey, they also bought Ninja Theory, not to be confused with Team Ninja. Speaking of We Happy Few, we then got to see a new trailer for it showing off all the cool 60s British sci-fi inspired stuff that first caught everyone's attention at E3 2016, before it came out on early access as a disappointing grindelicious storyless survival sim kind of dealie. According to some people who've recently played a newer version of it, the game is now far closer to the kind of Bioshock meets The Prisoner type of affair people were initially expecting it to be, which makes me more inclined to check it out when it launches, properly this time, on August 10th. Meanwhile, the Xbox One version of PUBG getting the PC version's War Mode update this winter was all the justification Microsoft needed to have the announcer bellow "exclusive" before the trailer. Also, Tales of Vesperia's getting a nice looking definitive edition, which is no doubt fantastic news to fans of the Tales of series of games. I myself have never played even a single one of them, so this bit was just a big dollop of random anime to me. We then hit another drawn out, somewhat tedious moment similar to the Kingdom Hearts 3 segment's drudgery, only this time it was for The Division 2, Ubisoft's sequel to The Division, obviously. Only this time the shooty looty occurs in Washington DC instead of a snow-covered New York. This segment also saw the return of the Utah MP, the Ubisoft totally authentic, honest multiplayer players, with their totally authentic and not the least bit scripted I swear on me mum multiplayer dialogue.
Duke, Kit, did you guys hear that? Yeah.
Closer this time.
On the bright side, this segment was predominantly gameplay footage and not reels of pre-rendered cinematic wankery. Ubisoft were saving that for their own conference. We then had another interlude in which the head of engineering at Xbox Game Pass, Ashley Spiker, talked about things like,
"We leveraged the machine learning expertise we have at Microsoft."
Then told us all a bunch of games were coming to Xbox Game Pass. Cue a massive list of games coming to Xbox Game Pass. Outer Wilds, Afterparty, Kingdom 2 Crowns, Golf Club 2019, Warhammer Vermintide, Fringe Wars, Below, Conqueror's Blade, Waking, Raji, Super Meat Boy Forever, Planet Alpha, Islands of Nine, Sable, Harold Halibut, Bomber Crew, Children of Morta, The Wind Road, Wargroove, Generation Zero, Dead Cells, and Ashen. I wonder if these all count towards those numbers Phil gave us earlier. Probably. Up next was another trailer for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, releasing on September 14th, making it seemingly one of the few games that hasn't been packed into February 2019 like it was the last chopper out of Saigon. Then came Session, the skating game from Montreal-based Creature Studios that earned twice its funding goal on Kickstarter. But I should say Session full stop. Or Session period if you're American, because it's deliberately part of the title, that little dot. Deliberately in the sense that skate was also spelled with one, and Session is a skateboarding game. So if you like skateboarding, then you might like this. Moving on, we then got yet another pretty looking trailer for Black Desert Online, a game I couldn't possibly care less about. Not without taking a master's degree in meh at the University of Capcom then slapped me awake with this trailer for Devil May Cry 5, starring Dante of the Devil May Cry series. Only joking, of course. This installment's protagonist is obviously Nero, Dante's nephew. I mean, who could possibly confuse this cocky white-haired sword-wielding man with this cocky white-haired sword-wielding man? Only history's greatest monster would publish an article saying that Nero was Dante, then realise their error and correct it 20 minutes later. Oh sure, they try and explain it away with feeble excuses like still experiencing jet lag from an 11-hour flight, or covering a loud fast-paced conference live as it happens, or humans are flawed imperfect beings that sometimes make mistakes. But such a heinous universe-shaking affront, one that literally pisses in the very face of our divine creator, can only be properly punished by an eternity of ceaseless torment in an entirely new 10th circle of hell, built especially for them, carved out of the ice right under Lucifer's bum. It's something I might say if I gave two shits about the lore of Devil May Cry. This new one looks like it could be fun though. Up next was news of some DLC for Cuphead in the form of the delicious last course, which also comes with a new playable character. I can't really say much more than that. Does what it says on the tin, doesn't it? After that came a trailer for the adorable looking Tunic, aka The Legend of Zelda Link's Persona. What, you actually thought it was a wolf? Ha! Shows what you know, fake Zelda fan. Jokes aside, this does look really rather lovely and adorable, and I'm very tempted to give it a spin when it's released. Because as well as Xbox One, it's also coming out on PC, and that's great because us PC owners aren't exactly drowning in games like this. Phil Spencer then returned to give us a little speech about something. I can't actually remember what it was though, since I was too crushed that he hadn't done a t-shirt swap. Because some fucker had to go and ruin E3 forever for me, didn't they? Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Not too crushed that I didn't instantly recognise Frieza's spaceship from Dragon Ball in this trailer for Jump Force What Came Next, starring a whole bunch of characters from Jump Comics, an imprint of Shonen Jump magazine in Japan. Yes, I see you down there in the comments section frantically typing, I think you'll find the correct term is manga actually, Baka Gaijin. Couldn't even wait for me to elaborate, could you? Anyway, Jump Force sees Goku from Dragon Ball, Ninja Goku from Naruto, and Pirate Goku from One Piece all joining forces to kick the shit out of Frieza, the owner of the spaceship I mentioned earlier. Presumably other anime villains as well, like dramatic potato chip muncher Light Yagami from Death Note here. This apocalyptic trailer for Dying Light 2, sequel of course to the somewhat jankalicious zombie apocalypse parkour fest Dying Light, came next. Although calling Dying Light 2 a post-zombie apocalypse game doesn't feel sufficiently accurate. It's more a post-zombie apocalypse affair, where everyone's just got used to the hungry, flesh-eating horrors stalking the streets and are spending their days trying to rebuild shit. Honestly, aside from the Dishonored-style rooftop antics here, there wasn't immediately anything about this that made me think, ooh, I've got to get this when it comes out. Then Chris Avellone came out on stage. The very same Chris Avellone, who was lead writer on Planescape Torment and Knights of the Old Republic 2, designer on Fallout 2, on the writing teams for Fallout New Vegas, the most recent Prey game, and Torment's Tides of Numenera, narrative designer on Divinity Original Sin 2, and now narrative designer for Dying Light 2. Chris's focus in this bit was all about the story, specifically how every action will have tangible, and perhaps not so tangible, consequences in the game world. In the example given here, you could kill some bandit types to secure a water supply for a peacekeeping faction who might then get a bit too big for their jackboots and start totalitarianising all over the place. Alternatively, you could help the bandits to create a thriving black market for water that eventually lures criminals, hoodlums and other ne'er-do-wells spoiling for a fight. So even if the game itself turns out to be a bit rough and janky in places, the story elements at least should be top fucking notch. Because it's fucking Chris Avellone. After a trailer for a new Battletoads promising 3-player couch co-op and broad, non-specific feature declarations, followed by an announcement for Just Cause 4 that surprised absolutely no one since it had been leaked already, we then got not 1, not 2, but 3 Gears of War titles. Or is it just Gears now? Anyway, the first, hilariously, was a mobile tie-in with Funko Pop, the hideous dead-eyed beanie babies of the 21st century. I have to confess to a certain sadistic thrill at seeing this, a sort of nerd culture schadenfreude if you will. But only because I knew full well a proper Gears of War 5 was coming up. No, I didn't have any insider info. Beyond my sources at Walmart Canada, that is. It was just exceedingly obvious that the Coalition were burying the lead on this one. But before Gears 5, we got a glimpse of Gears Tactics, a squad-level turn-based strategy game coming to PC and PC only. Besides blatantly taking some inspiration from XCOM, which is no bad thing in the slightest, it's also a prequel set 12 years before the first Gears of War, making it the first Gears of War game I might actually have a shred of interest in. Unlike the trailer for proper non-Funko Pop, no jokes this time, the story continues Gears 5, which was a load of story bollocks that means sod all to me. Phil then returned one final time, still no t-shirt change, to bring the event to a close with talk about things like cloud engineers and streaming games on any device. No, really, he actually said cloud engineers.
Our cloud engineers.
Like it was some kind of real job rather than a fancy word for what this bloke used to do in the Care Bears. Along with a casual mention of the hardware team working on the next Xbox consoles. All in all, it was a pleasantly low-key end to an otherwise jam-packed presentation. Okay, so it looks all pretty and slick and good looking, but this was all pure presentation with little in the way of any substance. So let's not all get carried away, okay? We need to re-examine
Re-examine
and look at this sensibly. I mean, I don't know about you, but I still remember how good Witcher 3 looked. I want this game to tie me down, fuck me. And with that, the presentation was done. Whew, as was I. Fucking hell. Much like their 2017 E3 conference, Microsoft came out with another barrage of games, although whether or not that barrage will put any sort of dent in Sony's current market lead remains to be seen. Some of the titles on show also weren't quite as exclusive as Microsoft tried to imply, but they were still very strong choices for this presentation. I may not personally be hyped to the point of vomiting for Kingdom Hearts 3 or The Division 2 for example, but many other people certainly are, and I'm happy for them that they've got something to be excited for. Assuming they own an Xbox One, of course. I'm especially chuffed a bit for Xbox owners having the opportunity to experience Nier Automata. The more people sucked into Yoko Taro's mad, existentialist universe of hot robot girls in short skirts, the better, I say. And bring on the Switch version so Ninty fans can join the party too. Nothing whatsoever has been officially confirmed about that, by the way. I'm only saying it'd be a very nice thing to happen. And it's more likely than not given Square's recent aggressive push towards Switch development. Naturally, the Cyberpunk 2077 reveal was the divine highlight of the presentation, if not all of E3. I need to pull my hair and call me filthy names. So that alone makes this conference a winner for me. All in all, there was a hell of a lot to cover here, hence why I had to skim over a bunch more stuff than I would have liked. This presentation also only reinforced my belief that this console generation is a reversal of the last console generation, where the PS3 was perceived to be the more powerful of the two platforms, while the 360 had the edge on releases and exclusives. Fast forward to now, and Xbox One X takes the lead in system power, but Sony has all the games. In conclusion, to say this conference was a strong showing would be selling it short. But is it strong enough? One hefty lineup of games isn't enough to win or lose a console war, for want of a less childish and immature descriptor, but this is Microsoft's second one in a row, and with a more pronounced killer to filler ratio to boot. If they can keep this up for at least another year or two, we might very well see the gap between Xbox One and PS4 shift to something a tad more balanced. As all things should be. In short, well done Microsoft, this was another good show. That's all for this episode of the Pixelburn E3 Blitzkrieg covering the Microsoft conference. Up next will be the Sony conference, which was, how do I put this, somewhat less robust, shall we say. Then I'll be covering the Nintendo conference, and after that, time permitting, possibly, maybe, no guarantees, summaries of the other conferences. At the very least, I hope you found this tolerable and that you'll join me again next time. Meanwhile, until then, I'll be in my bunk.